Good afternoon, kids. I am here in my butterfly, what I call the butterfly garden or my prayer garden. But I want to show y'all something that I discovered this week, and I'm going to try really my best. But if you could see this object, that is see the brown and white? It looks really like, what is that? What it is it is a caterpillar. And this caterpillar will turn into a yellow, it's called swallowtail butterfly. It's so pretty. And just think, to me, that little caterpillar wasn't really pretty, was it? So we are going to watch that together. We're going to watch how God transforms that caterpillar into something beautiful. And so today, let me get my thing adjusted. I'm sitting on the cement out here because I didn't want to go get a chair and all that. Okay, so here's our New Testament. We're still going to be working on that. Ready? Are y'all ready? If your parents need to pause it, remember you got to have your Bible, okay? We're going to keep going over this because we need to know where the books of the Bible are. And even when we memorize through a song or just looking at it, it sticks in our head and it helps us later in life, okay? So, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, and Revelations. Okay, see this? Jude. That's the second to the last book of the Bible, okay? And we are going to learn something about Jude, okay? The truth is that Jude, let me see where my little marker is the author of this book, of course, Jude, the brother of James. And most likely these brothers are the same brothers that they talk about in Matthew. And these are Jesus' half-brothers. Jude was Jesus' half-brother. That's something that you probably didn't know. Because guess what? Miss Cammie didn't know it either. That's why when we study, we learn something. Even though I'm teaching y'all, I don't already know this stuff. Now, some things I do, but this is different. So that's why we're going over that. Books of the Bible. And we're just going to learn a few things about it. We don't have to learn the whole book, but a few things. So Jude was Jesus's brother, half-brother. Okay. Now, this book Jude wrote because believers were listening to false teachers. We've heard this over and over. Okay, so let's see here. So I want you to remember one thing. When Jesus was walking on the earth, did you know that Jude didn't want to believe Jesus? Lots of people don't want to believe Jesus. They just deny him. But later, Jude knew that after Jesus rose from the dead, he knew what he had talked about all this time was truth. And so he went about, after Jesus was resurrected, teaching about Jesus and what he did, and that there's a God, and we have to obey him. There's rules in the book for us guidelines for us to follow. And so this book was a passionate plea for the readers to stay in their faith. Don't listen to these false teachers, okay? We have them around us. Things like people say that to go to heaven, you have to be good. Well, guess what? Miss Cammie ain't good, so I can never make it to heaven. Is that how God would like it? No. Okay. So, now we know that Jude is right before Revelations, okay? We know that Jude was Jesus's half-brother. And then the most important, Jude is only one chapter, okay? And so it's short, and it's just about staying in your faith, okay? Staying what you've been taught. And sometimes those believers would stray away from it. Okay, so now we're going to get on to our lesson. And our lesson comes from 1 Samuel. We're going to learn about Samuel when he was young. His mother was Hannah, okay? And Hannah prayed and prayed and prayed, and she couldn't have kids. And she prayed so hard about having kids, a son. She wanted a son. So here's our story. Here we go. A woman named Hannah prayed to have a child, and God finally answered her. So I know a lot of you kids and your parents are praying that Miss Cammie's cancer goes away. And so we are believing that God's going to do that. So I think Hannah believed that one day God would give her a son. And back then in the Old Testament and I think the New Testament, if you were a woman and you couldn't have kids, it was kind of like you were looked down upon. Like, you can't have kids? Well, you must have done something wrong. And so anyway, it was not a good thing if a woman didn't have kids. So, here we go. And God answered her prayer. Hannah had a son, and she named him Samuel. Samuel. Okay. And Hannah and when she prayed to God about this son, she said, Lord, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you. And what that means back then is that she would give him when he was old enough and you know, not just a baby, not just 3, but a grown boy. Let's say he's 12, okay? Because you're starting to hit puberty. So let's say that he's 12. He's a little bit older than y'all kids. And the mom and Hannah gave him back to the Lord. And so he stayed in the tabernacle with Eli the priest. So let's hear what's next. Hannah kept the promise she made to God before Samuel was born. When Samuel was old enough, she took him to the tabernacle and dedicated him to the Lord. She told Eli the priest, and so Eli the priest would be like Preacher Doug to us, okay? He was over the church. And so she told Eli, for as long as he lives, he belongs to the Lord. So guess what? Samuel grew and helped Eli in the tabernacle. During this this, let's say, season, okay, during this season, messages from God were rare, which means God didn't speak to people back then. Back then before Jesus came, that God spoke to people. Moses in the burning bush. Remember, he spoke to him out of the burning bush. And so these were rare. But one night, Samuel heard a voice calling his name. Samuel. And Samuel ran to Eli in the middle of the night. And he said, "Here am I. Did you call me?" Samuel said. Eli said, "No, son, go back and go to sleep. Go get back in bed." So he went back to bed. And this happened 2 more times. Samuel heard God's voice. 2 more times he ran to Eli. And the last time, finally, Eli said, "Okay, if this happens one more time, I want you to say, 'It is I, God, I'm listening.'" And so Samuel was a servant. And so Eli knew, oh, he's probably talking to Samuel, the servant, because he's a servant in the tabernacle. So Samuel did exactly what Eli said. God told Samuel that Eli's son had done bad things. So Eli was the priest, but he had sons, and the sons weren't living up to the expectations that God had placed on Eli the priest. You know, sometimes when, let's say, Preacher Doug, you know, he has 3 sons, and maybe we, as people at the church, expect more out of them. We expect them to be perfect boys, but guess what? They're not perfect young men. They're older now. And so, you know, a lot of times what their guidelines are more than ours. And so this is what happened back then is God told Samuel that Eli's sons had done some bad things. And God was planning to punish Eli and all of Eli's family because of the evil things his son did. Samuel went back to bed and he slept until morning. He did not want to tell Eli what God had said because he had to tell bad news to Eli. When Eli wanted to hear what God had said, Samuel was brave, and he told Eli the truth. We've always got to tell the truth. God continued to give him, Samuel, messages for the people. God was with Samuel, and Samuel served God. All of the people knew that Samuel was God's prophet. Now, we are going to learn about Samuel, and it's a good thing. So, while Miss Cammie's been sick, she read both 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. So, I kind of already know. I mean, real recently, I know a little bit about this. So, you know, Jesus gave us many perfect examples on how to live, and Samuel is one. He obeyed his parents, he obeyed Eli, and he obeyed God. And maybe you'll hear, I don't know what our next lesson is next week. Let me see real quick. Anyway, Samuel's a good example for us because later he just leads people to God. And so we need to do that today. We need to be an example to people, to kids in your classroom, in your neighborhood, if you're a big brother or a big sister, you need to be an example. You need to be an example to your sibling, to your brother, your little brother or little sister, okay? So, that sums it up. I got our lesson under 15 minutes. I know that's not very long, but, so, a few quick questions. How did Hannah keep her promise to God? She gave Samuel back to him. Whom did Samuel help at the tabernacle? Eli. I don't know if that blanked out or not, but my battery's getting low. Okay. Who called Samuel in the middle of the night? God did. We have to be listening for God's voice. What message did God give to Samuel? That the sons weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. Eli's sons, the priest. And so we need to be doing what God wants us to do. We have to obey our parents. Miss Cammie has to obey the Lord. And so, one more question. How did God use Samuel? God gave Samuel messages for the people. Samuel was God's prophet. Okay, so we will pick up next week. I'll let you know how the caterpillar goes. And I want you to be able to share that with me. This caterpillar that is very different. It's not like a regular green caterpillar that I've had over there. And so I'll let you know how it goes, okay? I'll keep y'all posted. Maybe next week it'll be in a chrysalis somewhere, okay? It'll be fun to watch. Okay, I will see y'all at church tomorrow, God willing that I feel good enough to come. I've had a rough day today, but it's okay. Sometimes the devil uses things to make us feel really bad, and he uses this cancer in Miss Cammie to make me feel bad some days, maybe so I wouldn't do the lesson. But you know what? We did it anyway, didn't we? Okay. Y'all have a good evening, and I'll see y'all at church tomorrow. I love each one of y'all. Bye-bye.